Welcome back. Something completely different today. Well, not completely different, but certainly different from what I've done before on this channel. It's not a gardening show, you'll be pleased to know, or maybe you won't. Certainly might be better than my woodworking, but something different. Certainly something I've never done before. This is a real first for me, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing when I started out on this. But basically what I'm going to show you over the next few videos is a garden shed build. I watched a video of the DIY guy, and he produced a set of videos doing the same thing, building a garden shed, a much bigger one than I am building, but doing it in an economical manner and with stuff that you might have already, and that really kind of caught my imagination when I watched it, and I'll put links below to the videos. When I watched it, I thought, I've got some of that material kicking about. I could possibly do this, and had quite a bit of time on my hands as well. Didn't have much work on, and so I had opportunity to go out at lunchtime. The weather was good. This was all shot around summer of 2025, and yeah, so I had some time and weather to get out and to tackle this. And so here I am at it. The first thing obviously was to find a piece of ground, and this bit is out the side of our house. You can see it out of our kitchen window, and as you can see, it got exceptionally overgrown, and every time I looked out the window I thought I really need to do something with it. And when I saw the video, the DIY guide video on the garden shed, I thought that's a good place to put a garden shed. It's a nice, not small but not large piece of ground where I could build a shed, and there was a purpose to that, and the purpose was I had no room left in my garage to build anything, to move anything about. I had inherited very kindly some tools and materials, hardware, from a friend whose husband unfortunately passed away, and so I very kindly received these tools and that, but it didn't leave me any room in the garage. And so my idea was build a garden shed and move all of the garden things, the lawnmower, the strimmers, the pots, the plant pots, all of the weed killer, all that kind of stuff that gets put in the garage and takes up room, and put it into this garden shed that I was going to build, and that was going to help me and get me some space. So let's get to it and clean up this patch of land, get rid of all this weeds, all these weeds and overgrown plants. It really was a bit of an eyesore, and I left it far too long. But it was very therapeutic doing it, even though it was so hot, and I was sweating all the time. You'll see me stop, or maybe I've edited out the stops to just dry myself off and get a drink. What I would like to say at the start of this is not a how-to video. As I said, I watched DIY Guy's video, and if you want to know how to build an economical shed, a very sturdy one, and in his case a very large one, go to his channel. I'll put the links below, as I said. I'm in some way copying him, but not exactly, because I certainly didn't want a shed the size that he had, and my design was slightly different, which caused me some problems in the end. So anything that I do wrong here is not because of the DIY guy's video, it's purely because of my lack of ability. So yeah, keep watching. In this video, I'm going to do the base of the shed. It's fun what you find in the garden when you're clearing up. That was a bucket of water and paper that my wife was preparing to use for her pot plants, but didn't get used, so I was trying to get rid of the water, and it was pretty stinky, I can tell you. That's why I'm kind of coughing a bit. I left it in the end and hoped that the sun would dry out the water and I could just get rid of the paper. But that didn't really happen. But anyway, we continue on clearing out and preparing for the base of our shed. I'll give a few pieces of advice through this video. Not that I'm any expert, but I know there were areas where I should have spent more time working things out. And one of those areas was leveling off this area to put down the base. You can see here in various stages that I start trying to level it off, and it looks pretty level at the end of this clip, but it wasn't really. And when I started putting down my pads for the base, I realized that there was still a lot of soil in between that was kind of humped up and needed to be cleared away. So take some time to level off the soil to get it as flat as you can, and use whatever tools you need to do that, because it'll make it a little bit easier when you're putting your pads down and trying to lay, or at the very least trying to see if those pads are level, because I had soil in between. You'll see me kind of digging that out further on in the video. So I've got my soil prepared, got all my weeds out. I've leveled it off a little bit, not as much as I should have. And as I said before, you should spend some more time on leveling out your area, make sure it's flat. But we've got to the point where I can start putting down the pads, and I've got a bit of a plan. I guess another piece of advice is to really plan this out, because I didn't really. I did some planning, and it'll come back to bite you, because my pads weren't in line, and then that means when you start putting your 2x4s down for the base, then they're not straight, and things don't match up. So do plan this, and put string lines down or whatever to make sure your pads are straight and in line. I had a bit of a disadvantage here in that the shape of my shed was not going to be a square or a rectangle. It's got an odd angle that you'll see later on, and that made it a little bit more difficult for me. But still, if I'd spent more time mapping this out properly and getting right angles at the corners where I could, it would have been a lot easier. Anyhow, we're putting down the pads now, and the structure of this base, as you'll see as this goes on, is that I'm going to put a pad kind of at each corner and a few in the middle for the base of the shed. I'll dig out holes. I'm going to put some hardcore, I think it's type 4, is it, in that hole. I'm going to put some concrete on top of that, and then I'm going to put these pavers down on top of it, and that will be my base, which obviously is a lot cheaper than pouring a whole concrete base, which would be a lot more stable, or big screws into the ground or anything like that, which of course work very well. However, the purpose of this is for it to be economical but still very stable. And I can tell you, how, now that it's built, obviously you'll see that in the last video, it is very sturdy. this works really well. So that's what we're doing now. We're getting our pavers down to start building the base. And now we are at the point I've laid out my slabs in the rough areas that I'm going to put them. I should have planned that a bit more, as I said, but I know roughly where they're going to go. I can start digging out the holes to put the Type 1 aggregate in. I said Type 4 before. It's Type 1 MOT, which actually apparently stands for Ministry of Transport, because apparently that's who used it or made it or something like that. And it's basically stones and gravel which get buried down into the soil to give you a fairly hard surface to put your concrete and then your slab on. And so that's what I'm doing, digging out each one of these, which I tell you was really hard. It was really hot summer. This summer, as I said, it was summer 2025. It was really hot, and I'm not in the best physical shape, as you will be able to see. And so this took a long time and was really hard work. I'd put some of the garden weed suppressor down to try and keep the rain. It was raining occasionally. Try and keep the soil dry, but you'll see that disappears soon. And so yeah, it's going around all my points, digging them out, putting the Type 1 in, putting my slab back on, leveling it out or getting it as level as possible, although I'm going to take that slab off again, as I said, and put cement on, and then sorting out all of my bases so that hopefully they're all level and I can start putting down my 4x2s for the base itself. Another piece of advice I would give when you're doing the base is to perhaps work out what the final height of your slab is going to be, and maybe put some pegs in the ground at that height. I know some people will use things like lasers and stuff like that to get the height. I didn't have any of that kind of equipment. But obviously it's difficult. I found it difficult because I didn't put pegs in to get that height, because I would have to dig out a hole to roughly what I thought it was, put in the Type 1 to roughly what height I thought that should be, put the slab on, make sure, try and get it as level as possible, and then I'm going to put concrete on top of that, and then set the slab on that. So I don't know how I did it. They did come out relatively level. They could have been a lot better, but it would have been better if I had put pegs in to get the height that I wanted them to finally be, and that would have made it a lot easier to work out how deep I need to dig the hole, how much hardcore Type 1 to put in, and how much cement to put on top, obviously bearing in mind the thickness of my slab. So just bear that in mind if you're going to do this, that there are better ways to do it. And again, I'm following DIY guy in his the way he did it, and he's got a lot better instructions on how to do this. So follow his video. This video is just you can do it. It's not this is how to do it. It's you can do it, because if I can do it, you can do it, and build a shed probably far better than I can. So just something to bear in mind when you're putting your slabs down. And so, just for your information, I used about 8 bags of the Type 1 MOT, and they were about £8 a piece, £7 or £8 a piece. So it's not overly expensive to put that down. I already had the slabs. I will do a full cost of how much the base did and how much the other bits did at the end of each video, so you get an overall understanding of how much it cost. It's not cheap, but you're building a lot sturdier shed than you would get if you bought one of these, I don't know, flat pack ones or something like that. But I'll give you a full rundown of the cost at the end of each video. Now we've got all our holes dug, all of our type 1 down, and our slabs semi-level. It's time to fix those slabs down, and you'll see me mixing up concrete here. It wasn't supposed to be concrete, it's supposed to be cement, which is probably why it was so hard to do, and you can see how hot it was as I was mixing this stuff up. But it was supposed to be cement, and you'll see me using cement in the next clips to put these down. So it's just a case of mixing it up, putting that cement down, and leveling that and leveling the slabs when I put them down, and then obviously making sure that all the slabs in relation to one another were level as well, so that the whole floor is going to be level in the end. As I said before, I should have spent more time doing that. It was pretty level. I was quite impressed how level it was. It doesn't need to be completely flat. It's just a garden shed. But yeah, you might want to take more time in doing that and get a longer spirit level than I had, and get the right tools for the job. All the slabs are bedded down in the cement. Cement's gone off, and so it's now time for our 2x4 framing. Again, think about how this is all going to come together and plan it, measure it, and make sure things are square. I didn't really do that. And one thing I didn't think about was my back wall is going to be, I'm going to fix it to the garage wall to make it sturdy, and I was going to put some, and I have put some spacers in there, so now there is a gap in between the shed and the garage, but water is able to go down there and sit on those slabs because they're right up against the garage wall, and potentially in time rot the 2x4s, although the 2x4s are treated, so it shouldn't really happen, and the water will probably run off. But it's just something to think about. You need to think about all of these things, and I didn't put enough thought into that. But anyway, we're getting our frame together, and it's okay. But again, it could have been more square in areas, and I could have put a little bit more thought into that planning. But we're getting it together and screwing that together so that we can start putting our floor down. So we've got a good view now of the shape of the garden shed. As I said before, mine's is kind of an odd shape with that corner cut off, which is not ideal. It's better, obviously, if it's square or rectangular. But just wanted to point out, when you're doing your 2x4s, if you cut any ends, you need to treat those, because this is all pressure treated and such like. But when you cut it, obviously the ends need treating again, which I'm doing here. I also forgot to mention about the weed suppressant fabric. You can see I put that down and pegged that down because you don't want weeds growing underneath it. But the frame is coming on, and we'll soon have that down and be ready to fix it to those slabs. So this is the last piece of the frame going in. Apologies for the gratuitous views of my underpants. That'll put you off your dinner for sure. But I mentioned before about measuring out, planning and measuring out your framing. You can see here I need to cut off some bits to make this last bit fit, and it's not straight at all, I'll be honest. It does go in, but it could have been a lot better. Now I'm going to fit the framing to the slabs with these 7.5mm by 100mm concrete screws and some angle brackets. The angle, I think I've got about 15 of these brackets. They didn't cost that much. The concrete screws I already had. I don't know if I'll be able to get a cost for them for you at the end, but I'll show you that at the end. And we just fix those down so that the frame is perfectly secure against the slabs, so that when we put our wood floor down, that's all very stable as well. And so with the brackets fixed to the slabs, I now have to go back round and using good old wood screws fix the other end of the bracket to the 2x4s so that we've got a lovely solid frame to put our wood flooring on. That's the frame done, or so I thought. You can see me here testing out some planks that I was going to use as flooring, and the planks bowing quite a bit. And it was this point I realised that I didn't have enough 2x4s in the frame. And so you won't see me fitting those, but later on when you see me putting the wood flooring down, you'll see there is a lot more 2x4s in there than there is now. And again, it goes back to planning and understanding, what that frame's going to look like. I was following DIY Guy and his shed, but his was far bigger than mine's. And so just be careful that when you're doing your shed, if it's not like exactly like the one you're following, you're going to have to make some adjustments for that. So I made some adjustments, added some more, and we can see the wood flooring going down now. So we're making some cuts here because of the odd shape of my shed, and something I didn't think about. I put these planks right up against the wall, but of course I'm going to have a wall there, and the tongue and groove of that wall is going to need to slide behind the 2x4, and so I had to cut that back. Something else I didn't think about at the time. So again, plan what you're doing when you're creating this. Think ahead about what you're going to need to do, and particularly give yourself room around your frame to fit your walls. This was really satisfying, finishing off the kind of first phase of this shed and putting this flooring down. You can see I started off with some floorboards that I happen to have laying around, and putting those down. You can also see that there are a lot more 2x4s in the frame, so it's a lot more solid. I also had pallet wood in the garage that I wanted to use up, which was really the purpose of building the shed, to empty the garage and have more space in the garage. So it was good to be able to use that and get that cut up and used on the flooring. So we're going through this bit by bit and getting our flooring down. And of course, treating it as we go along. This platform was going to be open to the elements for a while before we got the walls up, so it was important to get down some treatment on the wood as well, just to protect it until we get those walls up. And so, yeah, this was very satisfying. It went really well, and if nothing else happened, even if I didn't get the shed built, I would have this platform we could use for dustbins or something like that, plant pots, or just a nice area to sit out in. And so, yeah, really satisfying and a good part to get finished with on this video. So as we come to the end of the build for the shed flooring, let's talk about some costs. Obviously, I had the slabs kicking around, so didn't need to pay anything for those. The Type 1 MOT, the aggregate that we put in the bottom of the holes, that cost me about £40 for 6 bags. It was about £6, £7 or thereabouts for the Type 1. 2 bags of cement, I think, and all of this is estimated because I don't have the receipts for a lot of it now. I think I got 2 bags of cement, which cost me £16 for both bags. And I got 2 bags of concrete, I think, and that cost me £26, which was a mistake. I didn't need concrete, it needed to be cement or mortar you could use. The 2x4s for the main frame, I got 6 4x8, 4.8 metre lengths of that. That cost me in total £136, £137. The brackets, I got 15 of those. They cost me around about £25. I did have to get another pack of floorboards. You see me putting those down in the last bit of these clips. That was £70 for a pack of 4 to finish off the planking. And the weed suppressant, I had some of that, but I bought another roll, and that was about £20. So roughly speaking, for all of that material, it was £333 or thereabouts. So as I said, you might think that's not cheap, and it's not, but that is a very sturdy base for the rest of your shed. and I can attest to that. The base is very, very solid. I didn't have to pay for the concrete screws. I already had those, so there would be an extra cost for those. Didn't have to pay for the wood screws, again, because I already had those. So if you're and of course, if your shed's a different size to mine, which if you do this, undoubtedly it will be, then the costs will be different. But that gives you an indication of how much it cost me to build just the base for this shed. And so as we come to the end of the build for the base of the shed, just like to point you towards DIY Guy and his videos that I followed to do this. Go have a look at them. The links will be below. Hopefully this has been useful to you and an impetus maybe for you to build your own garden shed. It's doable. I did it, and so if I can do it, then you certainly can. Like and subscribe if you did like it, and there'll be a couple of more videos, one for the kind of walls and one for the roof of the shed, where you'll see the complete build and the complete costs for it. So thank you for joining me. Please put any comments below, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.